Hello. All right. Hey, everybody. Is that too loud? Let's go over here. Okay, thanks everybody for being here. We got a lot to talk about tonight. The most important thing is that since about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the complaint has been in process being filed. There's had been 136 case filing statements, one for each plaintiff, and then there, however many defendants there are, there's had to be one for them as well. But it was finished on Wednesday, and then again it was audited yesterday for how many clients we actually have signed up, which is in total is 136. And then we changed the defendants around, and then we worked more on the complaint, different theories going into it. So all of that aside, it's been in process of being filed today. So at any moment, I'm going to get a text from Pam saying it's submitted. So that'll be done. So that's good. We can move on from that. The next process then is getting a process server to serve the summonses. So once those summonses are served, everybody who's the defendant on the case has 30 days to give us an answer. Now, once that answer is filed, then we can do what we want with the case. We can proceed with depositions. We can send written requests for interrogatories and production of documents, and we start the entire lawsuit process as soon as there's an answer filed. So today it's going to be a couple of different things I want to talk about today. It might take a little bit of time, but I first want to start off with sort of trying to get people what we're prepared for. You could sort of think of this as a mental hiking trip. We don't really know how long the hiking trip's going to take. We don't know what's going to necessarily happen on the hiking trip, but we're all in it together, and we're willing to do whatever we need to do to get to the end of the hiking trip, no matter what it takes, no matter how much work it takes, no matter the cost, no matter the sacrifices that we've had to make. I think hopefully everybody knows who's here tonight and on the live stream that really since a little bit before May 8th, we've had a total of about 3.5 hours to spend on other people's cases since we did this. I mean, it's all we do. People roll out of the bed and get to the office anywhere between 8 and 9 and stay until 7, 8, 9. I always quit at 10. That's a rule that I have. Very rarely ever work past 10 p.m. at night. Patrick will be up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't advise that. He's left unsupervised. He typically does what we call HR every morning for a couple hours, which is answering your email, some of which have like 10 subpoints in them. That's okay. He loves to do it. But let's talk about the mental backpacking trip. Now, in the real estate cases that I've done, I've had all kinds of clients before. I've had multi-party clients in long litigation. It's been much more difficult to solve as far as liability goes in different cases. Let's all remember this is an easy case. There are people that approved a development on top of a gypsum mine, on top of uncompacted and untested mine fill, and on top of a sewage lagoon. Okay? There's no riddle of the Sphinx to solve. That's what happened. Liability is very clear. It's just going to be a question of how we get to that point where people are going to want to pay money. It's going to be a big bill. And so let's talk about the mental trip we're going to go on. All right. So there are 2 ways to handle the mental trip that we're going to go on together. One of the ways is the way my dad does it. I don't do it that way. But one of the ways my dad does it is he's a prosecutor. He's been prosecuting since 1980, and he still does it. And, you know, when he was doing the murder case up in Higgins Gulch in the year 2000, he was preparing for it. He could have just given all those defendants plea agreements for a mandatory life in prison. But the mom of the kid that was just horribly murdered, she wanted them to get the death penalty. So instead of just taking a simple guilty plea and going through and everybody gets life sentence without possibility of parole, we prepared for it and got the death penalty for 2 out of the 3 defendants. Now, then the one defendant had his case overturned based upon the judge not telling him that if he elected for a jury trial, that all 12 jurors would have to unanimously agree for him to be given the death penalty. And so his case was overturned. And sure enough, my dad, again, could have said, well, let's just do a guilty plea to mandatory life in prison. But instead, he went through a 30-day retrial of sentencing, and the guy was given the death penalty by 12 jurors unanimously. So the way he does it, that's going to be one way of looking at it in the mental backpack as we go on this journey towards justice, is to just do the work, no matter what the cost, no matter how long it takes, no matter if you're tired, you don't complain. If you're hungry, you eat if you can eat. If you're thirsty, you drink. If you have something to drink. And you never worry about the outcome. That's the way he does it, and that's how he gets through it. That's how he prepares for trials that go on forever, where the stakes are really high, and where it would just be so easy to take the easy way out. All right, so you don't care about the outcome. You just do the work, and you don't worry about it. Win or lose, who cares? You do it. Okay, then the other side, this is the side I like to subscribe to. And a lot of you, I encourage you to subscribe to this side. It again takes a lot of self-discipline and a lot of determination and a lot of will as we go on this journey towards justice. But believe that you've already won. It is not a difficult case to solve. There is no riddle of the Sphinx to go here. Believe that you have won, because you have won. Okay? The question we're dealing with is how long is it going to take for people to get compensation for the wrong that was done to them? So you have won. You should believe that you have won. The journey towards justice may take a long time. It may be difficult. It may require sacrifice. It may require loss of sleep and stress and all those sorts of things. But you want to, either route you pick, either sort of thing you want to put in the mental backpack, you have to divorce yourself of the emotion of this case, because the emotion of it, gee, you know, either are we going to win? I don't know. I'm not sure. That emotion that you attach to a case like this, it just sucks all of your energy away. And I have to watch it too. I have to really be careful that I don't get emotionally involved, because then I start getting tired, and then I start letting that affect my judgment in the case. And I have to sometimes just take a step back and remember that we've already won. It's just a question of when. All right, so that's what I have to say, and I just want to make that really clear, because it's so important when we take these first steps, which is what we've done today, to do that. Because when they answer the lawsuit, their answers will make you so upset and so angry. They'll make you furious. You'll ask me things like, can they really say something like this? How is this possible? How can they deny there's no liability? How can they deny the charges? Well, let me tell you, they can and they will, and defendants in cases that I've sued say all manner of stupid things that don't make sense, and they're dumb, and they're idiotic, and they waste our time, they waste the court's time. But again, that's a chance to use that self-discipline to not get emotionally invested. They will say stupid things, they will say they're not liable, and you know that's not true. And so just emotionally divest yourself of the case. So that's number one as we head onto this journey to justice. Number two is we have to deal now with Governor Nome and Senator Rounds. So, whatever day it was, it could have been 2 days ago, I put 11 hours towards reading the Stafford Act and reading the FY 2015 Hazard Mitigation Assistance Guidance, and I had to learn a whole new field of law that I've never known before. What happens at the federal level is that the federal Congress, they control the purse strings, they control the money. They give the president sort of a boundary of power as to what he's going to declare and do for disaster assistance. That's what's known as the Stafford Act, okay? That sets out, it's a very wide range of things the president can do. In fact, the Stafford Act allows almost any sort of thing to be disaster to be funded, man-made, man-caused, natural caused, act of God. And then what the president does, since that's his executive authorities, he creates an executive office, in this case FEMA, and then FEMA creates their own rules and their own things that they want to go by, and as long as they don't directly conflict with Congress, then they're allowed to make their own rules. And that's where you get into what Patrick and I like to call Where is he? There he is. We like to call it's called pamphlet law. All right, pamphlet law, and that's this here. And so when you're doing your pamphlet law, this is what the federal government has talked about what they're going to fund and not fund as far as disaster mitigation relief goes. And in a nutshell, you can get this on the internet, FY 2015 Hazard Mitigation Assistance. You can read it for yourself. But the little chunks that I pull out of it that are very important for this case is that FEMA is not going to want to fund situations whose cause is negligence. All right? That's the first thing they're not going to want to do. This is a situation, as you know, which is negligence, all of that sort of thing. Now, if there's a lawsuit, of course, they can choose to fund or not to fund a project, whether or not that's going to get in the way of their administering the project. But number one, they don't want to fund, not going to fund situations, disasters, which are 100% man-made, which is what the situation here is. Other important thing is that the governor of a state requests to the president, they actually request through the regional FEMA office, that an area either be declared a major disaster or an emergency. And now that's a question for the president of the United States, but what FEMA does is that they research what's going on, they get to the root cause of everything, they write a report, and then they issue that to the office of the President of the United States. And that request has to be done by the governor within 30 days of when the occurrence happened. So that was 30 days from April 27th. Okay, now that wasn't done. And as far as we know, there was no extension requested. If you don't make the request within 30 days, you've got to request an extension in order to make the request to the Office of the President of the United States that it is a major disaster or an emergency. If that's not done, which we have no evidence that it was done, then FEMA's out. They're not going to pay you any money anyway. So, even if they did make the request and it was declared an emergency, which is the only thing it could do, because a major disaster are only disasters which are acts of God and naturally caused. The only other thing it could be declared would be an emergency, which is maximum $5 million to give out to people who are affected by the emergency. That had to be done. We don't know that it was done. In fact, we have no information that it was done or that there was an extension requested. But if that's not done, there is no FEMA. And if the request was made, the office would have come out here, and according to FY 2015, they would have said, well, this is a disaster that's 100% man-made and the cause of negligence. So we're not going to fund it anyway. Now, a report like that, of course, would have been helpful to us because it would have been a federal office who had studied it and investigated and said, you know, sure enough, this is all man-made negligence and we're not going to fund it. But we don't have that. And so in responding to the letter that we received in our office from Senator Mike Rounds, which said that, sort of, I want to paraphrase it, that we were going to request FEMA, but that you guys filed a lawsuit for $75 million, and therefore you're ineligible for FEMA because of the lawsuit, is flat out wrong, and it's flat out not right that that statement was made by a sitting United States Senator. It's untrue and incorrect, and what it is it's victim blame. Because the question is to Governor Noem's office, did you make the request? Or did you request an extension? If you didn't make the request and you didn't request an extension, why would that be? The only reason I could think of, didn't want a federal agency coming in and saying, you know what, this is 100% man-made disaster caused by man-made negligence, and we're not going to fund it. We could use that in the lawsuit, and it would have been helpful. So that's my question to Governor Noem. Did you make the request? If you didn't, why not? I think she owes that to the residents of Hideaway Hills. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm John's partner. Just to add on that, the statute actually says that they should, within 5 days of the disaster, the governor should request either an emergency or a disaster be declared. 5 days. Why is that? Because you shouldn't have to wait 30. Obviously, if it's an emergency, you can't wait 30 days. So that should be the question. When you were displaced on day 1, she could have made a request to the President of the United States and asked that you be given not even hazard mitigation assistance, but individual assistance, assistance for temporary housing, all of those things. That was within her power, and for some reason, she chose not to do it.
And Patrick was just pointing out that, you know, as lawyers, when we delve into new types of law like FEMA, I've never read and studied FEMA before, but we do all this research and we do all this reading, in this case 11 hours, and then we still don't know if we're exactly right. But sure enough, I talked with a FEMA representative today. I called him yesterday, and you don't actually get anybody on the phone. You just get a answering service that says, leave a message and we'll call you back within 48 hours. And so I talked to that gentleman today, and I explained my understanding. I said, you know, I understand that, you know, you don't cover disasters caused by negligence, and that I'm representing 136 people here in the Hideaway Hills Subdivision that was built on top of a gypsum mine, sewage lagoon, and untested mine fill. And, you know, that to me, in my understanding, would be man-made negligence. And according to your FY 2015 hazard mitigation assistance, you don't fund negligence. And he said, you know, I talk to people all day long about FEMA who don't understand it and haven't read it. And he said, I actually took part in writing FY 2015, this document right here, and he was so happy that I understood it. And I quoted him on my notes as, you are absolutely correct. And so that's the understanding here. I don't want any representative, either of the state of South Dakota, Meade County, or the United States of America, blaming people who have filed a lawsuit that it's their fault they're not going to get any federal assistance, that it's their fault that they're here in this man-made disaster, and that it's their fault with whatever sort of bad circumstances that they're having right now. To me, it's inexcusable, and I think that United States Senator Rounds should take those comments back, and they never should have been said. And I think it's time that the governor of South Dakota absolutely address why the request wasn't made, or why an extension was not made. So, now.
You have people that vote for those people and put them back in office. Why can't they work for us?
Well, absolutely. You know, I saw Senator Rounds on West Boulevard, or they're on Omaha waving to people, and I thought, you know, why isn't he out here talking to people? And why would he write an email saying that, you know, there's no assistance available to you because you filed a lawsuit? It's not true. It's not right. This is... Well, yeah, and they're blaming the victim. They're engaging in victim blaming. So be prepared for that. I didn't expect that you would see that from your representatives in the United States, but be prepared for the other side to go ahead and blame you. It's victim blaming. It's the #1 defense tactic. You know, we didn't do anything wrong. We did everything correct, and it's your fault anyway. So be prepared for that. That happens, and that's you know, used and made to infuriate you, to get you to emotionally attach to the case, and then wear you down day by day, so that you can't make it to the end of that journey towards justice, which is what we're going to do. So you may now read the complaint that's going to be a public record here when it's accepted, which will be on Monday. It's not going to be rejected this time. It's going to be in its final form for now. And we started out, first of all, we didn't think we would ever have this many people. Patrick and I talked about it, and we said, you know, we'll go out and we'll give the pitch on May 8th. We'll tell them we think it's a great case. We'll tell them we'd like to represent them. And, you know, we'll probably get a few people to sign on when they find out that their government's not going to do anything to help them. We had no idea that people were so ready to sign on, and that we would ever have this many people who would want us to represent them. So we're so thankful for that. We had then, of course, wanted to build a partnership with attorneys that we think that we could work with. Now, and this will be the second segue here of my conversation. I had a couple of attorneys. Well, I had 3 that I really wanted to deal with. Now, these are people that I went up against in real estate cases, and I thought they were very good. And one of them is in spearfish, and he told me, first of all, he said, you know, you're probably crazy. And I said, yeah, I know I'm crazy, that's fine. But I want your help. And he said, well, I'd love to do that. I feel terrible for these people, man. Did they get just screwed over terribly bad? But I don't have the paralegals, and I don't have the staff in order to join you full time for litigation. Okay. So then we called my my mentor, who mentored me, starting in 2010, and he always said, give me a day, I want to think about it. And he called back the second day and said, geez, you know, I feel so terrible for these people, but you know, I'm retired, and he was going to be perfect too, because he retired very well off, so he's going to be great to work with. He said, I feel terrible for these people, but I got a special needs daughter, and I am retired, and you know, my heart is just not in it. And so I can't come along and you know, say I'm going to help you and do these things if my heart is not in it. You need to have somebody like you whose heart is in it in order to give these people justice. So then we talked to a third guy, and I think we made the mistake calling him he was third in line too, but we said, hey, you know, I went against you. I thought your briefs were great, your research was great in real estate cases, and we actually had a productive conference. He said, you know, as it stands right now, you've got to pare a bunch of these defendants down. You can always add them later. Don't sue 40 people at one time, because you'll literally have enough motions to dismiss to put in the back of a pickup truck. And so that was a productive conversation. We pared a bunch of defendants down and out, just because we can sue them later on. So if you're suing title companies, you're suing a bunch of construction companies, just do one title company and one construction company at a time. You can always add more later. So when you look at that, the list of defendants is actually much smaller than it was 2 weeks ago when we filed it. So you have to know that. Now, you also have to know that we're going to reduce the percentage in the fee agreement. We're going to reduce the percentage in the fee agreement that we're taking. Patrick can tell you the specifics on how we're going to handle that, but we're going to cut our fees down. Nothing else changes about that. You still, the costs that we've spent, which are now estimated instead of $100,000 to be $250,000, we're working on it. But nothing changes with our costs. When we win, our costs still come out of our percentage. You don't pay the percentage and then pay our cost. Our 25%, we're going to use that 25% to pay for our costs. So you never end up paying for the cost anyway. But the reason we're reducing this is that we are, again, competitive. We are competitors. That's why we've been working tirelessly, definitely since May 10th on this thing. I don't even know where my belt or my cufflinks are, to tell you the truth. I mean, I have no idea. I sort of have an idea that it's Friday today, and that's good. But, so we're reducing it. Now we're going to kind of Aaron Brockovich it, okay? Because what we have is we have numbers, and you never can beat numbers at all. And what you can't, if you have numbers, okay, let's say we had 100 paralegals to put on this case. The only thing that beats 100 paralegals on the case is 100 people who you are representing. They want justice in their case, and they want to work on their case, and they want to know it. Now, we're going to require an additional piece of paper, and you don't have to sign it. And if you don't sign it, your files will go into a room that nobody else can see. But for those that are okay with that, we would like to take on, as Patrick pointed out, can't call you a paralegal unless you have a 4-year degree, but I can call you a legal assistant, and you can work your case, and you can work other people's cases, and then that kind of creates a movement within the community so that everybody knows what's going on, and everybody drives this thing all the way home. Because I'll tell you what's the worst part about one of these cases that I absolutely can't do ever again in my life, is you go to this journey of justice, and you sacrifice all of this stuff, and you do all of this work, and the people you represent get tired, and they get exhausted, and they're hungry, and they want to quit, and then everybody takes less than they should get, and then we take a big chunk out of what they should get, and nobody's whole, and it's worthless. And I won't do that again. So we're in this together, we're in this forever, if that's what it takes. And we would very much like people who want to assist. There are a lot of smart people, a lot of good people out there that can assist. We will be taking on another full-time lawyer. We will be taking on a paralegal who will do nothing but data. I think we're running close to a terabyte of data so far. So we'll take on another paralegal who will just run data. Patrick will be the captain of all of the paralegals hired and the legal assistance from the community, because that's what I want more than anything in this case. I want more than anything in this case for people in this community to be determined, to see it out to the end. Don't let them tell you they're not liable. Don't buy their story, because it's a lie and it's not true. And if you get your game face on and either work like you don't care what the outcome is, or work like you already have won, it's just a matter of time that you're going to have a result that's going to be good. It's going to be great. Maybe they'll make a movie out of it. I don't know. But what I want it to do when it's over and done with and all the sacrifices and all the work and the money has been spent, at the end of the day, I want you to be proud of me, and I want to be proud of you, that you never stopped, you didn't quit, you didn't let them get you mad, you didn't take their garbage, that you believed as though you had already won, because you have and you will. All right, so last thing, the negative part of my speech. All right, here it comes. I'm going to turn this up a little bit. So, you know, we're competitors as lawyers. We compete. We go to law school and we compete against other people in law school, and we, you know, just are not the most sweet people that you've ever met. Now, I've had people that have wanted to partner up with me, and sure enough, there's this Fox Rothschild law firm. They got about 900 lawyers on their staff. I've looked at them. They've got pretty much big law firms in big cities, and they do that sort of thing. And so they reached out to me. I got the email in here somewhere. But they reached out and they said, hey, you know, we know about, oh yeah, here it is. Hello, John. Hope you had a good Memorial Day weekend. Fox Rothschild, specifically attorneys Mark Connaught, David Crooks, and Dunham Biles, and I have been retained by certain residents of the Hideaway Hills Subdivision with respect to the instability of the surface property, yada, yada, yada. Okay, we have the monetary resources to handle the cost of a broader litigation without burdening clients with cost until there's a monetary recovery. We are joined in this endeavor by Anthony Vitullo of Fee, Smith, Sharp, and Vitullo. So they're joined by a different law firm, and he's a seasoned litigator in the area of large and complex litigation who won a $4.2 billion judgment against JP Morgan Chase in Dallas about 2 years ago. So that's what the email said, and I'm not going to just shoot anybody down and be competitive for competitive sake or anything like that. My first question was, if I get 30% of 4.2 billion, I'm not going to be in the legal game anymore. I can tell you that much. Be doing something else. So obviously the $4.2 billion case was hourly. But you know, they're a giant law firm. And so, of course, you know, maybe that's a good idea. Yeah, I mean, when people extend their hand, you know, just tell them no. You know, tell them to get lost. But on the same day, from the same person, from Miss Kathleen Barrow, she's a partner, Fox Rothschild, we received an email that was sent to one of our clients, blind carbon copied. So that means that if you get the email, you can't see who else the email was sent to. And it said, I have several people ask about terms of representation. But the first one is the first sentence is, this is for those of you who have not yet retained counsel in the reference matter. I have several people ask about the terms of representation. We intend to be engaged under a written contingency fee agreement that will provide that the attorneys as a group, not individually, will receive 30% of the monetary recovery prior to trial and 40% of the matter if it goes to trial, I think is what you meant to say. 100% of the cost will be paid by the attorney team. These costs will not be charged to the client unless there's a monetary recovery. If a settlement or monetary judgment is achieved, costs will be deducted from the monetary award, and the net amount will be paid to the attorney team for their fees, 30% or 40% as applicable, and the client. So what that says is whatever award there is, there's going to be a deduction in the cost from the award, and then you get the net amount, and then the attorneys get their percentage, and everybody else gets what their percentage would be, which of course wasn't workable to us because we never wanted a class action, and I didn't understand what that meant, because that just means everybody gets the same number and they get 30%. The email goes on to say, it's our plan to first acquire geological engineering bore test reports before we sue for damages. This is to avoid our litigation being dismissed because we cannot allege damages that are caused by unstable or sinking surface property due to subsurface mining. We'll attempt to get Meade County Commission to pay for the geological engineering studies. In the meantime, it's our intention to look to your homeowner's insurance company to help pay for your moving fees, temporary housing, and other costs you may be incurring due to the gypsum mine. That is a beautiful thought. Okay, so this is the part I like the most. Now, I've had some bad things said about me, but you may be aware that a personal injury attorney, John Fitzgerald.
Such a compliment.
Yeah, let's go over one thing real quick. There was not a single reference on my PowerPoint that was from a personal injury case. Not a single one. They're contracted real estate. But anyway, this greasy personal injury, they didn't say greasy, but you may be aware that a personal injury attorney, John Fitzgerald, has sent an unfiled complaint to a local television station, Rapid City. This team is concerned that if filed, the complaint may be dismissed because it fails to articulate for each of the individual plaintiffs how each of them have been damaged and how the mine caused the damage. We will see. It is our plan to contact Mr. Fitzgerald and see if he will join the team and we can help avoid an adverse ruling in the Fitzgerald litigation from negatively impacting everyone else's damages. If you'd like to retain the firm to assist you, please send me your contact information. We'll send an engagement letter to you for your review. So, long story short, the email that asked me if I wanted to join them and talked about all the money they had to help me out, I responded to that the next day after receiving this email. 2 words, it's an invitation. It's only brought out about once every 3 years. And it says, pound sand, period. And then I sign it. And it always just makes people so upset. Freak out. And then they wrote an email back to me slamming me, which then got me really upset. And of course I posted in that group chat that email with like 17 misspellings. I was just so upset about it. But anyway, so long story short, and the main point of the story is I will never, ever, 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 times 10 million, partner with somebody who sends me an invitation to be a partner and then in the same day turns around and calls me a personal injury attorney and puts doubt in my camp about filing a lawsuit, okay? Yeah, never, ever, ever, ever. In fact, this is the last time I'm ever going to say their name. If we do a case together, I will not help them. I will not share ideas with them. I will look them in the eye. I will not say a word to them. I will, because I have learned, and maybe that's how you move up floors in the million billion lawyer law firm, is by getting some attorney on the line that you think some dope from some small town and talking about how you want to be partners with him and then stabbing him in the back to his clients, which is unethical, violates Rule .36, which I told him it did. Maybe that's how you move up floors, but I don't care. I'm not going to be part of that game. I'm not going to be part of ever working with somebody that I can't trust, because that's the #1 thing. And I found out the hard way, the terrible hard way, that it is better to have no partner at all than it is to have a partner that you can't trust. Because that hurts you. When you think you can rely on somebody and you can't, that's when you really get in trouble. You're better off on your own than with somebody you can't trust. But I've spoken a long time, and I am more than happy to take anybody's questions. The other thing is we really got to get going on this core stuff, and that's where Patrick comes in. And Patrick's going to talk about that. I want to leave you in the loop that we've made all these promises and we're not coming through with them. We just barely have had any time to sleep or eat. So Patrick's going to talk about coring, but again, we appreciate it. We thank you guys so much. And we look forward to just giving it all to you. You have one. That's a given. Just a question of when. Thank you. Wow. Okay, let's see if I can. There we go. Normally, when I do karaoke, I usually hold the mic, but I think in this case, and how it's all configured, I might over-modulate everybody by doing that. I'm usually holding the mic and hold something else, make me more comfortable with the mic. But anyway, so people are kind of curious with the science updates, where we are with all that. Last week or so, we have been just probably 100 hours trying to go through and get this thing polished up, cleaned up, the complaint out the door. And it is out the door. It is refiled, and it will be accepted on Monday. We are certain of that. But a few questions have come up, a few things have come up, a few new discoveries to even talk about. When we presented this back on May 8th and again on May 17th, we thought at that time that the area of environmental hazard that is indeed the sewage lagoons down on West Elmwood Drive, we had presented and we had firmly believed that that was constrained to just the areas of Glacier Court, which is a cul-de-sac looks just like this one, and Rainier Court as well. However, upon new information received, and I gotta say, we could not be more blessed and feel better to represent the community that we have here. But the information that we received is from a source that we don't even know. From somebody who provided information that is potentially highly exculpatory to their own claims if whomever this even is. We came in one morning last week, walk in the door, sometime by 8:30 or whatever it is. I promise I work at 2 a.m. and I'm back in place whenever I can wake up. John has to call me sometimes to get me up out of bed. But embarrassment aside, we walk in the door one morning, right there in our lobby was a files of a bunch of plans for these sewage lagoons. And not only that, but they were superimposed on top of the streets that were not just these cul-de-sacs, it was the entirety of West Elmwood Drive. When I came through 2 weeks ago and we laid out, these here chadrons here, marking where I want to do my core drills, we had initially thought it was just the areas of the cul-de-sacs down there. But upon that new information that we have, that area is expanded to the entirety of the West Elmwood area. And we're quite excited to see what that's going to come. Because I cannot count. First of all, we cannot identify anybody, but we cannot tell you, simply because we also lost track, how many people from that area of the community have called us up and have reported quite concerning things, such as, my dog gets cancer every 2 years, I have to keep changing the dog out. My wife moved in and now she has, various autoimmune diseases, or this or that. And I really believe I can probably count on one hand the number of houses down there that haven't already identified to us some very disgusting and concerning medical issue. And that is what we are eager to figure out, is to do those cores and figure out if that information, if those was actually reclaimed correctly. Because Governor Noem in her phone call, which we have a copy of, it's a one-party state, we have a copy of it, she identifies that area, we can rest assured, was properly reclaimed because the state of South Dakota did it. However, we don't have those records. And I have been requesting those records from the Department of Natural Resources, who would have been responsible for overseeing those reclamations, who would have processed all of that. And I believe even on the same phone call, I do not recall who it was, but I think someone tried to kind of pin her down on that point. Someone said, oh, well, this was 2004 and there was this other reclamation effort that wasn't documented either. That's kind of really reassuring, isn't it? So that's one thing. Now, people also are curious where we are at with our own scientific surveys and our reports and all that fun stuff. I can tell you today that the geological report for the entirety of the community is probably about 80% done. What's remaining on that survey is the coring itself, which is actually, like I said, a very tiny percentage of what we have to do. We have been looking at road cuts, we've been out with rock hammers, looking at some soils, and then also compiling the reports we have. Let me just tell you a story. Another one we had was a gal called in last week, and she reported, I believe she lives somewhere on Bluebell, she reported that her basement wall collapsed about, a few years back. And, she couldn't give a first-person testimony to it because she said her husband kind of took care of most of it and whatnot. But I was trying to ask her some questions. Because what we're trying to figure out is, where is this mine fill? This fill dirt that was used in this mine, this uncompacted junk. And what, she was able to represent, because all this time going through, was there rocks in it? Was there gypsum? Was there chunks of stuff? Was there any stratigraphy that was visible? And she kind of cut me off, said, Mr. Ealy, I don't know anything and stuff. I'm not a geologist. I don't know.
But then she stopped me and said, it felt like baby powder. So if you take some gypsum, and if you have some of the silt over here on the sidewalk, or some of it already over there, if you take it and run it through your fingers, that's exactly what it's going to feel like. Baby powder. There's really no better way to describe it to a layperson. It's like, oh yeah, that's exactly what it would be. So we have a report now of the baby powder. So now we really think we know where that fill dirt went. And our geological coring will finally resolve that. However, fortunately for us, about 2 houses south of Mr. Nathan Cherry's house over off of whatever it is. There we go. Meadow Rose, there we go. About 2 houses south of that, someone's doing some work there in the ditch. They already worked the whole thing up. There's actually a nice pile of literally baby powder sitting right there, right next to us. We just had to go through it. We didn't even have to even bust out the rock hammer. It's like, oh, here it is. I just took some pictures of it to preserve the record, bagged it up, and I will tell you, and you all can leave tonight, and you can go down there and take a look at it. I don't know whose yard it is, and I don't want to get into giving permission for trespass. I don't have that authored, I knew. But anyway, just take a look at it. You'll see there is no stratigraphy in that. There are no rocks, there's no pebbles, there's no granules of any different variety or take or anything like that. It's baby powder. So, you know, the coring will allow us to confirm where the baby powder is. The coring will allow us to confirm with our agreement with Mid-Continent Labs what kind of heavy metals, arsenics, biohazards, all that sort of stuff that is down in West Elmwood. But we literally feel we already have a very good take of what is where. We just need to confirm it. You know, Mr. Doug from the county EMS had a phone call with him, and he confirmed all this anyway. He already knows it. So we're going through gathering the data, gathering all this information, but it's really secondary to what's all the parties that are culpable have already identified to their own knowledge. We will continue to pursue it. And like I said, we would have had it done this week, but I spent literally with John probably 100 hours going through just this complaint. Mark my words, it will be done next week, for sure. We don't need to say, we do not need to stand here and tell you I have engineers and surveyors on standby, because you know what? We got them scheduled. Now, the other question that comes up, and I've been asked this a few times, this even came up in the group chat here a little bit early in the week. What kind of surveys are we even doing? Okay, my wife is a consulting geologist. She's a graduate of the School of Mines, very qualified, very intelligent. And by doing a geological study, what we're actually doing is we're basically doing mapping. Think of it that way. It's a map. And we are still, I have had probably a half dozen or more different engineering firms with geotechnical engineers on staff to give us a geotechnical report. Now, the geotechnical report is based upon the geological map and the findings of the geologists that go out in the field and actually document all this stuff, including like the granules and all this sort of, you know, where the rocks are, what they look like and smell like and taste like and look like. We've had some issues there to find somebody. We will find somebody. But I want to explain. We're doing the mapping, the geotechnical report that we told you on May 8th that we needed, again on May 17th. That is a report that allows us to see and begin to answer the question, which houses are unsafe? Can't emphasize that word enough, unsafe. So people have also said, and maybe people with a little bit less understanding some of the sciences, well, what would it take to tell me if my house is safe? I'm not qualified to make that presumption, and I don't know who is. What you're going to require to do that level of analysis here is called a geomechanical or a geostructural analysis. Okay, so you have your mapper, that's your geological, map, your geological study. You have your geotechnical report, which is basically a geotechnical opinion, which is founded from the map, where an engineer looks at it and says, this area is safe, or this area is unsafe, due to these hazards, while the geomechanical and that report is actually a very specialized skill set that I can tell you confidently today, there are probably fewer than a dozen people in the world who are qualified to answer that question in this instance. Well, what they are doing is they are rock forecasters. They are people that look at the mechanics of the actual rocks, mechanics of what kind of rocks are where, how their rocks are moving, how they're likely to move, and they're making a rock forecast, an engineering forecast. It's a very, very highly specialized form of work. And I can tell you, I hang out with a lot of smart people. I'm a nerd by trade. Lord, I apologize. But, I have not come across anybody in my discussion groups, people I hang with, that is qualified to make that opinion. And I would even feel comfortable even asking to come forward for that. But good news, the onus for that, for the person who has to answer the question, is this house safe? That's a defense exhibit. We are not going to produce the work and the exhibits for the defense. We have a standard of burden to prove and to show with reasonable scientific certainty and accuracy and support these houses are unsafe. It is on the defense agencies to come in, and if they can find somebody qualified to make that higher report, and I don't know that they can, but more power to them, and that will be their work, their cross to bear to try to represent something of safety. I'm not qualified to, and neither is anybody else that I'm immediately aware of. We are concerned about your safety and your safety alone in that whole matter. So that's, someone kind of, like I said, that kind of answered the question for the 3 different types of reports that we're looking at here. The other thing that comes up, and I want to kind of build off something John said. So when we talked to everyone here on May 8th, we were anticipating maybe, you know, we might get 4 houses, 6 houses, I don't know. It's kind of a fun little thing to do, this action. It's not fun for you all or nothing, but we thought this would be, you know, a fun little, you know, feather in our hat. We'll get a few houses and we'll take it and, you know, advocate and see what we can do here. In fact, we weren't even talking at that time about even doing litigation. But what ended up happening is the overwhelming support. I mean, we have a live stream going. I don't know if Jerry can see how many people are on that right now.
18.
18. So we have 18 different viewers. There's probably, you know, people scattered, probably 2 or 3 people per viewer watching us right now live. There's more people who are going to watch us in the rears. There's people here, I don't know what this would be, maybe 60 people or so, I don't know, 50 people. But, you know, we did not anticipate this movement. As John said, when he went out and talked to other attorneys, and I was with him for one of our meetings up in Sturgis, we've reached an interesting point where the traditional rules that a lawyer operates under, the traditional standards, just don't apply. They do not apply here because you have so many clients, we have so many defendants. I believe, don't quote me on this, please look yourself, it's on the group chat. If you're not in the group chat, talk to me later, we'll get you in there. But there's, on the current version of the complaint, there's probably about 35 to 40 different defendants, but we've identified a list of potential defendants, given the strategy that John has introduced here, going after one at a time, and then once we get one isolated, copying the, you know, the strategy, the prevailing strategy, and briefs forward, and just adding all the other ones. Slam dunk at that point. But what's happened here is the scope and scale of this thing is unheard of. Everyone has their own individual case, and it's until we actually look through all your title work, all of your information, we don't even know which of the more than 100 potential defendants you would actually have a case against. Who built your individual home? Who was your individual subcontractor? You know, all these questions that apply specifically at the home level. And what we end up with when we're diagramming this thing is a massive web, and we've started building that web. That's probably going to be our next largest achievement beyond getting the complaint out, will be having a web against all of our known researched potential defendants to all of our current, and as they are continuing to be onboarded, our future plaintiffs. Big, massive web. And what that's done is, and when I say we have just thrown out the traditional rules here, I can't think of a better parable. You know, look at my hair. What kind of, I know, kudos to John for letting me have a little fun here, but you know, we are out with the bathwater on this thing. We don't even know what the, you know, how to actually approach this thing. We're breaking the rules here, figuratively speaking, of course. We're being very careful, and keeping John very on the tight there with the ones that I can identify, but we are not actually breaking any real rules. It's only a metaphor. Oh, he's back there laughing. Oh yeah, well, John, we'll talk later. But, you know, what we were looking at doing here, because we just didn't anticipate this demand. We love the support. We love having the ability to represent everybody here, and we want to represent even more. But that's when we came on with the idea of, you know what, we've exhausted our opportunities looking at other lawyers. They think we're crazy, and maybe we are a little crazy. I certainly look the part. But, you know, it's not a traditional, you know, $5,000 retainer for a contractual dispute kind of thing that attorneys love to snatch up left and right, because you can get those deals all day long and twice on Sunday. It's advocacy. It's grassroots. This is a political type movement. That's what this is. This is not a lawsuit. I mean, it is a lawsuit, but it's not in the traditional context of a lawsuit. It's an Erin Brockovich. And how did Erin prevail? Well, she was also kind of like us, coming in as things the underdogs. Saying, whoa, what do we do here now? Oh boy. So after many sleepless nights, we're going to change our strategies a little bit, because we cannot get help from other lawyers. They don't want to touch it. We can pull in some first-year law school grads because the economy kind of sucks right now, and they're not going to be able to find employment anyway, and they'll probably work for cheap, especially if you can find someone that already live in Rapid City in their parents' basement. Hey, we'll take them. I know, we're just being realistic here. But, you know, we overlooked the best resource we have. And I'm looking at them. It's you guys. And I can't emphasize that enough, because we are looking at this. We need a lot of legwork. And you guys are the best source of motivation that we have. When I look at those texts in the morning on the group me, and they're like, hey, we love you guys, that's awesome. But you guys are the ones that have the burning desire, the fire in your belly to drive this thing over the finish line. And that's the reason that no other law firm, no other lawyer would ever even think of this. We're going to pull as many of you guys in to help us out as you want. Whoever wants to come in and help, you know, we're going to open up our conference room, and we're going to have the Fitzgerald Law School, and he's going to lay down some legal boot camp for you guys. You know, strap it up, and we're going through this thing together, because we have a tremendous amount of legwork. You know, going door to door, doing forms, replying to this, communicating that. And quite frankly, you guys are the best resource we have. Now, with that, when we initially approached you guys, we had a fee agreement. I think it was 15, 20, 25, 30. It's not like I'm selling pizzas here. So we have this fee agreement, and we have one very, you know, flamboyant person that's, you know, very, very close to us, means a lot to us. And she said, well, you know, if you're going to be talking about bringing on some community, what are we going to call them? Community advocate volunteers, legal assistant volunteers. You can't, why are you so charging so much money? So John and I talked this over. He already kind of introduced Lake Foundation, but we decided to take our 15, 20, 25, 30, 40 deal. The 40% is now 30%. We are not ever going to take that, you know, that top 10% is off. And we're going to, you know, have that in an amendment. Now, the problem we run into, and like I said, this is where I help John out, is we run into some ethical issues when we go changing contracts like this. So when you're talking about bringing on co-plaintiffs onto a lawsuit, you have to go through and say, well, that's potentially strange, because what happens if person A says that they have, you know, this settlement offer, person B from the same company? It just gets weird. So of course there have to be some non-disclosure agreements, and more than that, those of you who are okay with this would have to approve this. So there will be ultimately two different file cabinets. Those who are okay with having some community neighborhood volunteers looking through your stuff, and those that say, I just don't want that. And that's fine. We will keep your stuff separate. But, you know, we have everybody's email address. We have been doing a great data, you know, organization, data mining project around here. All of that information will be advanced to you later on. We're going to send out the emails and saying, here's the proposed addendum. If you want to sign this, fine. We will allow your file into the stack that lets some of our volunteer advocates work on it. If you are not wanting that, if you want to keep your file back, then we will also respect your wishes on confidentiality and all this legal stuff that we're held to. Or I should say that John's held to. Paralegals are kind of freelance, you know, it's kind of fun. But, you know, that's, unless I'm told to knock it off, which might happen from time to time. Obey me, yes, you know, where I go on with the spike choker and But John's back there cracking up. But yeah, the way I dress is like, oh yeah, he's talking, no, you don't understand. I married a redhead, okay guys? So anyway, this is what we're looking at. It's very dangerous. This is what we're looking at doing for a proposed deal to you, because, like I said, we did not anticipate this much support. We welcome the support. We've had a lot of offers from the group that said, we want to help you. We need your help. We want your help, because we feel that the faster, the more aggressive that we can pursue this thing, the more energy we have behind this to ride this wave forward, the more energy that we have to do that, the better that this will be for everybody in the long run.
We got a bigger office.
And, oh yes, yeah. And we are moving into a larger adjoining office. We are going to have rooms dedicated just to the Hideaway Hills case, because the information, the data, the stuff that we are gathering, the things that get slid under our door anonymously, yeah, I know. It occupies a lot of space, just storing the documents. It is unbelievable. We have something north of a terabyte scanned into our server already. And we haven't even but begun to ask for documentation. And the other side's going to ask for documentation. And it's going to become a giant document gathering fiasco. So that's, you know, we see what's coming, we know what is coming, and we are prepared for it. And we would love to have a few of you come join up with us, log forces with us, learn a few things along the way. I mean, this is a great, if you're like me, you're a polymath, you want to learn a lot of stuff. I didn't go to school for anything legal. I'm actually an atmospheric and environmental scientist with some experience in mining. That's who I am, you know, but I love this stuff. And what I love about the practicing the law, and I think you guys will love it too, is the chance to do something unique, do something different, to learn a lot about our civics, to learn about how this country works and how this process works, and to also keep us energized and to keep yourself energized and to occupy your thoughts with the process of your case every day. Because some people are going to say, ask every day, what's the status of our case? Come work for us. You will live it with us. We want you.
But now, can you clarify why no other, law firms want to touch this?
All right, the question was, can we clarify why no other law firms want to touch this? John, do you want to fill that one in?
Well, there's a really strategic move to make as far as representing the people of Hideaway Hills, and so we actually did talk to a guy that, I don't know if he lives in the basement, but he lives with his mom. Fantastic lawyer. Seriously, lives with his mom. Fantastic lawyer, and he said no. So it's now we couldn't do this without your agreement, but I could go to 2 law firms, probably I know, and say, hey, you want the Hideaway Hills case? I have to get all your agreements and your approval. Then they would take your Hideaway Hills case, and maybe I sit back for the next 1 or 2 or 3 years and take 5%, and hang out in my office doing other cases. I don't want to do that. I don't want to give it to somebody or ask you to give it to somebody who's going to take control over the entire case, move it to their law firm, wherever that is, and then be your lawyer. I don't want that. That's why I looked for one lawyer who's retired, another one who's about to retire, another one who's going to retire in 6 years, a guy in his basement with his mom. I don't know if he's in his basement, but he's with his mom. That was 4 other people, because with those types of people, then you could still come to Fitzgerald Law Firm, and we're still your representatives, and then we still control it. We say, hey, you know what? We want people from the community in here working on the case. We're in control. The fear is giving it to somebody, and then they take the. Of course, I can't give your case to anybody, but asking you to assign your fee agreement over to them, we lose all control, and I don't know what they're going to do, and maybe they don't want people in their office helping out. So we want to maintain control, and we're looking for an experienced real estate litigator, preferably somebody who's retired, but even if they're not retired, would like to take part of our percentage and will pay them money to come litigate with us. And we've gone through 4. Doesn't mean that that's all there is. That was just in between the time we were drafting the complaint and doing the phone calls and doing the research and reading the FEMA. So there's more time. I mean, the thing is just filed and accepted today. So I have no doubt that we'll at least find one other experienced litigator who's going to come on and be a second team member, because I'll tell you right now, it's more work for one lawyer full-time, and I'll be doing the case full-time as a lawyer. I don't think I'll have a single other case until this one's over with, but even with one lawyer doing it full-time, paralegal, 12 people from the community, and then one hired data paralegal, and then probably 2 organizer paralegals, it still won't be enough. I mean, there's going to have to be at least one other lawyer who's going to do this case full time. We just haven't found them yet, and we don't want to give up control to somebody who, hey.
Respectfully, that doesn't really answer why no one wants to touch the case.
Oh, they do. Yeah, we've been fighting like cats and dogs over this. I don't know if you've seen the letters from other lawyers and stuff, but yeah, there's other law firms that want it for sure. It's finding somebody who come with us that we trust, and then we can maintain control. We can say, we want people from the community working on this case, and you might not like that. You know, that might not fit your idea of what a law firm looks like, but you know, neither does Patrick's hair. So, I have yet to approach one law firm that's not anyone that you've known about or heard about, but I know they would take it in a heartbeat, and I'd lose all control over it, and they'd probably run Patrick out with a tin can. You didn't even hear what I was saying. Any more questions?
And I have one more question.
Yep.
What kind of, is any testing going to be done to check for further voids? I mean, I understand that you're doing like the soil sampling and that kind of thing, and maybe not necessarily for this area of the neighborhood, but people closer to the mine. I mean, I think people are still pretty nervous on about what their houses are, what's under them.
Yep.
Not under them.
And that's the geotech survey. So the number one is the shallow core, which is next week. Absolutely. We've you know, given birth to the baby. The baby's in there now, so now we're going to have at least 30 days to do other stuff. So shallow core scheduled next week, and then when's geotech scheduled for?
Yep, like I said, we are still, okay, so let me back up a little bit here. A geotechnical survey is going to assess the community based upon the potential for these types of voids and whatnot, and where they would be expected, based upon the potential for foundation failure, based upon what we know where the soils are not compacted, where the cores come back as, dare I say, baby powder again. Man, I'm saying that more than clean supplies. But anyway, you know, that's why it's going to, you know, basically draw a map for us and showing us, based upon those reports, which houses are unsafe. Again, back to your question, we don't really have a way of knowing which houses were safe, nor do I even know an expert who would be qualified to make that assessment. And I still feel, I've said this before, the cost to make that determination, to make that assurance, that liability, is probably more than the houses are individually worth. Just say. Oh, I'm sorry. When was it coming down? I was walking back from the back. Okay, so when's it going to be going down? Well, we're going to be finishing up the geological survey. We're doing the quarry next week, probably a couple more weeks to finish up the actual geological survey. Again, the mapping is the best way to think of that. Hopefully by then we've tacked down a geotechnical firm that either wants this, has no conflict, or can give us a reasonable standard of when they think they can get it done. In fact, there was actually somebody, I don't remember who it was, but if you remember, if you can come identify yourself to me later, it'd be awesome. Someone actually came in our office and said that their sister was a geotechnical engineering graduate of the School of Mines, who now lives in Minnesota, who was excited about this. And that's a person that maybe we can, you know, flesh them out and see what they can do for us. Have them join with the consulting team. But when? After we get the geological study, and probably a couple months, I would presume. It's hard to say. I mean, we've really had a hard problem trying to find a geotechnical expert. We have a geological expert, and she's amazing, but the geotechnical expert's a little more difficult to find.
I wanted to say something too. I always forget it, and it's bad. We're not just one lawyer. Kelly works part-time. Can I say it again? Yeah. Kelly works half-time for the law firm. She's like the best legal writer. I mean, so good, so good. It's Gestalt writing, and you can read it. You can read what I do, and I spend forever doing it, and then you can read what she does, and it's awesome.
If anybody's been to our office, I'm actually the executive director also of United Families, which is that nonprofit right next door. So I spend a lot of my time doing that. We work with Child Protective Services because I was a family law attorney for 6 years in Rapid and ended up starting that nonprofit that works with DSS. And then I also work as in-house counsel for another company here in town. So I guess you could say I have 3 jobs.
All right, we have one very special, I'm going to call him a VIP guest tonight, who's agreed to come up here. I want to, oh, yes.
I was approached today by someone who has visited with Fox Walkless Child, and they have a standby person who's willing to do the assessment of our land for $10,000 for the group.
Okay, so yeah, an unknown standby person for $10,000. You know, we have people actually scheduled. You know, we will find somebody. We have a couple of names, but we'll go from there. Like I said, yep. Oh, yes, and John has corrected me too. Again, the specialization here is not going to be a $10,000 survey. That's not what this is. You know, a $10,000 will get you a soil survey and maybe some geological mapping. If my wife was actually sending her bills through, you know, a geologist themselves, a professional geologist, is typically about $100, $150 an hour just to go out with a rock hammer, break the soil, render an opinion of where the material actually lies and where it is. A $10,000 survey is not going to touch it. The estimates that we have actually come up with for the geotechnical survey, which we're prepared to fund and pay for, about $25,000. And that's just to tell us which areas are unsafe. No engineer is going to put their stamp on a piece of paper telling you where the safety stuff is or whatnot else for only $10,000 for the entire community. That's at best a geological survey, not a geotechnical survey. So that's, I'd be flattered if that's actually a thing. Yep, in the back there.
Yeah, I don't understand necessarily the jargon we're talking about geological and all this stuff. But again, I've gone to many meetings, I'll be right up front.
Yeah.
And Beersley says we're bringing in someone from Montana, we're going to do it. Foxes, Rothschild says we got a machine coming up here that will go and core test and tell you if you have empty pockets down under your property, so you'll know if there's empty pockets. And I hear you saying your different terminology. What they're telling me, is that wrong? Or am I being misled? Or are there machines out there that can come in, go to my property, and somehow tell me if I got empty cavities under my property?
All right, so the question was a pretty advanced question. It was, you know, kind of back to the scope of what this would require. You know, is there a simple machine that can come by and just tell me what I have under my house and what's safe or not? The closest thing I'm aware of, and first of all, I would be very suspicious of any expert who can't use the proper phraseology for the industry. I want to just lay that out right now. We are using different phraseology because I'm actually gone to school for this stuff. This is what we do. Now, the only machine that would be capable of figuring out if you have the cavities under your house or whatnot would be a LiDAR machine. LiDAR is basically ground-penetrating radar. If you take a sonar, you shoot it through the ground, you can kind of figure out where stuff is. However, once they actually get into honestly, it kind of shows how little research they've done. They haven't even talked to their expert, obviously, because if you describe a LiDAR situation with the gypsum that we have in the ground here in these formations, you got a pretty solid layer of gypsum, not very many feet under your house. You cannot penetrate gypsum with LiDAR. There is no simple solution. That's the reason the DOT over there is spending probably $100,000 plus. I have not seen the bill yet or come across that, but they're having to use a totally different method where they use electrical connections. Here I go, it's like I'm not using the right phraseology. It's an electrical conductive study where they're actually shooting an electrical pulse through the ground between various prongs that they've driven into the ground. There's no device that drives around and does that. You actually have to sink the forks into the ground at various depths, and then you have the arc calculations and everything else. It takes a very long time. It uses very specialized equipment. It's very expensive, but when you're talking about gypsum, that's about the only way to get a map of where, for sure, the cavities are, which that's the question they're trying to answer under I-90 right now. It's probably going to take them a month to do it. It's a very specialized line of work. Don't let someone come in and tell you it's a simple fix with a little, a metal detector or something like that, because it's not. You have gypsum. Gypsum is a very hard salt, and salt is actually repulsive to all sorts of, otherwise affordable methods, or else, they can do a LiDAR study from the air. That would be the cheapest way of doing it. But we're actually doing from the air. We've started our aerial surveys. What we're actually doing is we're flying over and we're doing structure by motion photography. So that's when you're passing over a point, you take a bunch of pictures, and then you feed those pictures into a program. That's a form of ArcGIS, and you compile all of those, and you're getting all the pixels together, and you can see from one angle to the next how the ground is continuing to deform. And we're using that information to monitor, primarily right now, to monitor the growth of the abomination in Mr. Trudo's yard, but also to look, because we've had a lot of reports from people around the community that there's other areas of concern in their own yards. And an aerial survey will allow us to watch that but it doesn't allow us to actually represent that that's the extent of all the cavities. To find the cavities over a gypsum formation, it's a lot more than $10,000. It's a lot more than a drive-by core drill kind of operation. It doesn't work. Once you get into the facts of it, and I'm sorry that they're not there, they probably just don't know this, but yeah. Yeah.
Patrick, I think a lot more is there's been a lot of rumors about GPR.
Okay, GPR, ground penetration radar. Yep. So yeah, ground penetration radar, it's LiDAR, same sort of thing. Again, it's using radio waves, shooting them into the ground, different frequencies. It's not going to penetrate the gypsum. So if you have some kind of a cavity hidden within the gypsum layer, which as we've demonstrated before, is extremely soluble. I mean, you put water in the stuff, we've already done the solubility studies, and we lose about 40% of the mass in 24 hours. Extremely soluble within the gypsum layer itself. You cannot use ground penetration radar or LiDAR, which are basically the same technologies, to even begin to look at that because it just reflects the radar right away. So real quickly, I wanted to introduce. Oh,
Patrick, I
yeah.
got a question.
Oh yeah, I've got two questions. Okay, I'll stay up here.
During the conference call with the governor, the head of the Department of Natural Resources was there, and he said that the South Dakota cement plant that came in and done a bunch of coring in here before this development was here. Have you seen those maps or know where I can find them?
All right, the question was, the South Dakota Geological Survey, when they were out here, they had represented that they had done a lot of coring throughout the area. And the question was if I've seen those maps, and the answer is no. The short answer of it is no. I have several emails, several phone calls into the DENR requesting access to their records and what they know on this. I've heard from somebody else, so it's hearsay, and please take it with a grain of salt, that claims to have had seen those maps, and that person represented to me that they did not actually do those cores over at Daisy, East Daisy, and they just happened to be, it was over the entire subdivision, and they just didn't do any over there. And what they were looking for, from what I've seen, is that they were actually looking for a soils test anyway. They weren't even looking for the cavities. And I forget where it's at, but there's a misrepresentation in the record whereby because someone did this coring with the state of South Dakota, and the fact that they did not actually hit any cavities throughout the course of that coring, then Meade County thought it was okay to commence a development. That was not the scope of that study. They were not considering that. They were looking at compactions, they were looking at soil types, doing a geological mapping type study once again. But that's what, to the best of my knowledge, that's what that was. But no, back to the question, I haven't actually seen those yet. I have several requests that have been unanswered. I can show you all the emails. It's kind of laughable. It goes off into a black hole.
Thank you.
Yep, I think there's another question. Yes, Tim.
Two-part question.
Yeah.
So when the survey is complete, will all the houses that are declared unsafe, will they be evacuated?
Okay, well, the question was when the survey, the geotechnical survey, I want to clarify that. When the geotechnical survey is complete, will all the houses be evacuated? And the answer to that is a simple scientific study does not come to the authority to issue an evacuation order. That would have to come from some kind of government agency. Probably the county EMS would look at it. We're certainly going to share it with them when it's released. But any evacuation orders or thus interpretation of that would have to come from them. And yep.
Then any houses that are not declared unsafe, will they be assumed to be safe and therefore lose weight in the law?
Okay, other question. Second part of it was houses that are declared to not pose a safety hazard. Would they, still have standing in the lawsuit and all that? And now you're back into some legal periods where you still have, the stigma, you still have diminishment in real estate value. Just because an expert stamps something that says your house is safe, does that mean you actually believe it? Does that mean you're still going to be able to get you the proper, fair, and pre-incident value of your house? I mean, that's the questions that would have to be answered at that phase to see what the understanding is. There's two ways to value real estate, and I buy and sell a lot of it. You can assess it by the value, the dollar amount itself. The other way you can assess it is by time on market. Any realtor wants to tell you both numbers. Say your house is $150,000 and time on market estimates 60 days. You might be able to get $150,000, but it's going to take a very discerning buyer who will understand that level expert report and who entrust in it So perhaps you're, merely speculating, perhaps your time on market would significantly increase as a result of this entire incident. So it's to be determined, but that's the best I can say on that. But okay. And like I said, real quickly, I'm going to try one more time. We have a VIP guest. We'll take more questions at the end, so keep thinking of them. We're here all night if we need to be. Looks like the storm's staying off. I see the outflow boundaries dissolving. But anyway, I want to introduce State Representative Dave Johnson. He's been a friend of mine for many years. He's served with me on the Box Elder Chamber of Commerce. Unbelievable guy. And he wanted to stop in. I told him what was going on, and on his own accord, on his own merit, he came out here on a Friday evening. And, that's Dave, so.
First of all, I don't like being called a VIP. That's not, it really isn't the case. I'm a tree guy. Now, I am, as far as mining goes, I am a graduate from the School of Mines, but the reason I'm here, folks, this is the 4th meeting that I've been at on this issue. And I'm here because it matters. I want to talk a little bit about what John mentioned and what Pat has mentioned. And I want to make sure that you understand that public opinion can be a tool or it can be a problem for you. If you attack, if you're angry, I understand your anger and the pain. I can't imagine the pain. But you have to get the public on your side, and if you do, you're going to win, and you're going to win big, because the public, your fellow citizens throughout the rest of the state are going to be on your side, and they have a voice. They don't want anything to do with the situation that you're in, and so they're going to have empathy for you if you foster it. Before I came here tonight, I thought the one thing that I need to mention to you is every single day, every person out here that's affected by this should do one thing, just one thing, every day. Write a letter, contact a politician, go to work at the office, write to your Aunt Betty who works for the Dakota newspaper. Get public opinion on your side. And if you're angry, you need to subdue it. Because if you're angry, then people they're not gonna pay attention to you. If you want empathy, if you want support from the people across the state, then approach people that you know and get them on your side. You've got all kinds of things you can do. Phone calls, one phone call per person, per day. Write in the 2 cents, but don't be snarky. Seek help, seek assistance. Talk to people in other parts of the state. That's how you're going to win this. If you want technical questions, a gentleman here is asking all kinds of technical questions, you're going to have to go to this guy. You hired him, who hired Pat. These are the experts on those kinds of things. What you need to do as a community, I firmly believe, is reach out and get the rest of South Dakota behind you. Because that's how you're going to get a hold of other legislators. That's how you're going to get the governor to come back. That's how you're going to get the governor to take another look at things. This governor will work for you. If the public opinion is behind you, this governor, this legislature will help you. But if you're angry, if you're mouthy, if you're snarky about it, you're not going to get anywhere. I'm telling you. Emails are nice, but they're too easily ignored.
We've been doing all of that from the beginning.
And you know what? You're making progress.
A lot of people have been given
What can
that
they help us with?
situation, but the people at the top seem to want to just turn a blind eye to it.
Pass the buck.
And what happens if they're passing the buck, it's because that, speaking from myself, I can't speak for the governor. But I can tell you that it's a guarantee that they're going to look the other way and they're not going to help us if we're angry. Look what's going on with the the situation in Minneapolis. It's all over the country now, and it's very controversial. I'm just saying that we
You have hundreds of people's lives and livelihoods and their life savings in peril right now. How are people supposed to see that?
Sir, I understand it. I'm here voluntarily. There's the election is over. I'm not here to get votes. Sir, I'm doing my best. I'm doing everything I can to help this community. And I'm just saying that the only way, this isn't fun being here, because I knew there's anger out there. I'm trying to help, and the way that all I can do is tell you that approaching, the old saying, you can, what is it? You get more flies with sugar than with vinegar. And let's talk, okay? And let's just come up with a plan to where we can garner all this public empathy, all of the public opinion right in their office. They know how to handle it. But if we're angry, what happens is if we go into like the Rapid City Journal and you say, can I have an interview with you? Or if you go to KOTA, say, get 2 or 3 of you together and say, could we talk with a reporter for a minute? If you go there and you've got a group together, you're gonna get results. You're gonna get better results.
Empathy will get us more than anger. It will. We have to show that we're hurting, not angry.
And get the people of South Dakota are your brothers and sisters in this situation. Those are the people that you want because they have an ability to reach up to their elected officials. They're the ones with the power. You need to garner those people. And I believe that we can get. Okay, I wanted to mention that one other thing here. You've got some very, very intelligent people here working for you, but they can't do the public opinion thing. They're going to be really, really good. Only you guys have that power to do that. Only you have the ability to reach across to Sioux Falls and Brookings and get those people in those communities behind you. These are the experts. They're going to do all of the nitty-gritty, but it's in your hands to get public opinion on your side. And if you can do that, you're going to be 10 times better off than just winning a lawsuit. I just firmly believe it. So go home tonight, instead of watching reruns of Judge Judy, what you need to do is do that one little thing. I don't care what it is. It doesn't matter what it is. Anything. Every person does one thing every day, and it's going to build. It's going to build a lot of momentum. That's the only tool we have other than the work that these people are doing for us. That's correct. I've already done some reaching out to prevent this, to do everything that we can legislatively to prevent this from happening again. And absolutely.
Can you also, you and your representatives, can you put together anything like legislation to get funding for this? If it's found out that perhaps South Dakota didn't reclaim the mine?
I think.
I
guarantee you that if legislation is, or if there's an issue that can be handled with legislation, I'll handle it. But that's going to come from this group here. That information like that is going to come through them. And if I receive any information from them, that's stuff that will be of benefit in the legislature, you're dang right, it'll be brought up. I'll bring it up, that's for sure. Again, this is the 4th meeting that I've been at. I've certainly got other things to do, but I know people out here. I've gotten to know Mr. Ireland very well. He's keeping me informed on things. And I'll continue to come to these meetings because, another thing that we need is when I'm standing or sitting in Pier and some politician comes up to me and says, hey, I heard this and I heard this and I heard this, and they're just money diggers or whatever, I can say to them that, no, I've been there. I've talked to these people and I've heard these hours and hours and hours of presentations, and here's the facts. And that's what you need in Pier also. You need people to talk about facts, not about innuendo or rumors. So that's another reason why I'm here. So I'm doing my best.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. So with that, I wanted to go ahead. You've kind of heard from me, you've heard from John. I'm going to kind of just open it up more to general questions that might still be lingering around. I expect a lot of them. We can be here all night if we need to be. I'm totally cool with that. Storm's staying away, like I said, so right down there, down low.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Has anybody talked to New County Equalization about adjusting our property taxes to be commensurate with our home values?
Question was, has anybody spoke with Meade County Equalization to make the property taxes commensurate with the home values? I can tell you, I personally haven't had the discussion yet, and you know, let's see here, I believe one of the former equalization officers, Mr. Kirk Chaffee, is indeed named in the complaint. He's out there. Someone that we want to talk to about some other ideas he might have had at one point in his life. But, you know, that conversation, I can tell you, we haven't had it. It's a good one to reach out for, for sure. But, yeah.
So I can attest that I didn't talk to him directly, per se, as I was in the courthouse having a conversation. This year's taxes are already passed, so there's nothing they can do, but we're paying on 2019 taxes. So in a roundabout way, we're still paying for taxes pre-sinkhole. So at the time, they were looking at trying to find a way to do an amendment so that it will reflect on 2020. But with other events that are going on, we don't know. So realistically, the best thing to be probably doing for equalization is call them at least weekly and bother them and let them know that we're not going away until you guys come up with with a solution. You don't have to call and be angry. You don't have to be mad. You don't have to be snarky. We need to be a squeaky wheel. And I'm pretty sure everybody knows the squeaky wheel worked because we got Governor Noem on a phone call for at least some of us. I don't know how many people were on that call. I would really like to know how many people got that call. But there was at least 8 of us. At least 8. Instead of 8 questions that got asked. So, but the squeaky wheel does work. So, we as a community, we have to be the squeaky wheel. It's a pain in our ass, but it's our life now. So, here's what it is.
That's why it's important when you ask for information that we all get it to them as soon as possible, because we're all in this together. So when you ask for the birth dates and stuff like that, it's important that we get that information in as soon as we need it.
Yep, exactly. And in fact, if anybody wants to even come up here and get some mic time, you know, there's no real rules on how we're doing this. So, John, if you want to come grab the mic, Mr. Hollywood over there. I understand that's your new nickname, sir. Oh, man. But you're right on, exactly.
So speaking of, like, getting everybody's birthdays and stuff, is there a better way to streamline that for you guys so you're not spending days trying to get information?
All right, the question was back to our communication structures. Is there a way to streamline these little nitty-gritty informations? I can tell you I've been rolling out some information, a new platform that's going to help us a lot with that. This whole thing, our ability to handle the course load is dependent upon our ability and me to call back on my previous life as an IT professional and lay out some new platforms. We have the GroupMe, which is the first platform we've done, that allows for you to ask us questions. Many people have said that the application is too buried. Go ahead and turn off the notifications. The only person that needs the notifications at midnight as they're trying to sleep on the pillow is us. Because that's your way to talk to us. You don't necessarily, and you just look through whenever you want. That's a great thing about it. Then there is another application I'm rolling out, which is going to send text alerts for these kinds of meetings when we need something. Instead of, you know, please don't use it as social media, but there's a lot of stuff going on in there. Instead of using this GroupMe thing where the alerts are turned off, we are using another platform to send SMSs, private text messages. We have cell phone numbers now for everybody, as well as email addresses for everybody. And we will be using that to coordinate future requests for information. We are hoping that these new volunteer assistants of ours, they will be, chasing papers and chasing information up and down the street for us to help us with gathering stuff as well as we need to, if for those homes that are allowed to do so. But that's kind of our plan. Oh yes, and Kelly is also a polymath with many strengths and capabilities. She worked feverishly and rolled out a beautiful new website, FitzgeraldFirm.com. Maybe you look on there. We have a tab on the website for just this case, and we will be keeping that updated, with various legal documents as they come up, because a law firm has an obligation to share back to their own clients when there are motions that come in, that kind of stuff and else. So to facilitate that in part, those types of things will become, items, news flashes and stuff like that on that website, made available to you. They are also public documents. People can go down to the courthouse and pull a copy if they want anyway. Well, we have a duty to you to make them available to you. And that's one conduit that we're using. The website looks great. It has a lot of capabilities, and we plan to use it. So between the website, the future text message platform will be rolling out here pretty soon with new updates. And we promise not to abuse that. It's not a group text nightmare. It's going to look like an alert from your school district that might say if there's a snow day or something of that sort. It's a one-way text. It's like saying, hey, lawsuit update, this happened. Go to our website, view the brief, or whatever it is that happened. It's one of the most efficient ways that we can keep this thing on track and keep everybody informed. So that's... Oh, yes. Is there any specific questions of the audience about FEMA? John has basically become a FEMA pamphleted expert, and Kelly's assisted a lot in that too. Pamphlet law is quite interesting, but is there any questions on FEMA? I don't see anybody. So any other questions?
I mean, at the end of the day,
No.
Well, like we said before, I think, and you can look, and we should probably post the statute on there, but it basically has to come from the governor as a request. The statute says that they should do it within the first 5 days. However, they give them a time limit of up to 30 days, not to exceed 30 days. If they want 30 days or need 30 days, they have to explain why, because obviously if it's an emergency or disaster, why are you waiting? And to our knowledge, she has not done that. So if anyone's saying, we're going to stop processing your FEMA applications, that doesn't even make sense, because there is no application, there hasn't been a declaration.
So Jennifer sent out everybody an email. I assume everybody that was on the FEMA application.
Hey, Johnny, come over here if you want. Come on, you know where to hear from? It's your yard.
It's not my yard. My yard's got the hole over it. So I assume everybody received an email for Jennifer that basically said that, as you are aware, that Meade County has voted and suspended the FEMA application process. Now, I sat on that county commissioners meeting for damn near almost 4 hours before they finally took a lunch break, and then I actually had to go do some work. I mean, most of us, actually have jobs. So I didn't get to watch the rest of it, so I was really shocked when Meade County voted to suspend the FEMA application process. Did anybody actually watch that through and see the vote? So they went behind closed doors to do it. Okay, so, I mean, I guess I quit watching when they went to lunch. It's like, we need to take a lunch break. It's like, okay, well, I just wasted 4 hours of my life. Now I have to go try to earn 4 hours of living, so. But, so, they voted on it. So that was a real shock. I did not know that they actually voted to suspend the FEMA application at this time. Okay. So I just want to make sure everybody was aware of that. I wanted actual confirmation that somebody actually heard that they literally voted on it, and because I couldn't watch the entire thing. I mean, I sat there, my bosses would come up, it's like, what are you doing? It's like, working, and the video's playing in the background on the big screen TV because I got my computer mirrored. Like, what's that going on back there? It's like, oh, I'm listening to the county commissioners meeting in the background. Oh, all right. We'll leave you alone.
I find that quite interesting because John having double confirmed this, having gone through all the law, both of us together, and having confirmed it with someone who actually helped draft some of that FEMA legislation and policies, that a county can't request FEMA. That has to come, or request that it be declared a disaster so that you're eligible for FEMA. So how is the county processing FEMA applications when there hasn't even been a declaration from the president of the federal government that it is an emergency or a disaster? So it's very misleading to say that they even have the capability to file those applications.
Okay, why couldn't a person contact OSHA and have them come out here and declare this place unsafe to live?
Just say, the question was, why can't they contact OSHA?
Anybody can contact OSHA.
But OSHA only protects workers,
Right.
not personal property. Same thing with MSHA.
And again, it's a huge process to request that there be a disaster or an emergency. There's a whole litany of things in the statute that says, will this even qualify? Okay, so the first step is you have to ask, and the only person that can do that is the governor. And then after you've satisfied that, then they go into the whole process of, do you qualify? Well, we didn't even get to that step because we didn't make the request.
Yeah, but I can also back up with,
Yeah, I guess I should qualify that with that we know of, but I think that you guys would know, or at least she would say that she did that.
Yep, and I'd also back up what John Trudo said. OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration. I'm unfamiliar with any relief they would have. I just don't know, but.
Some people do work out in this neighborhood, though. This is their business now. I know several people that do work in this neighborhood.
Yep.
But OSHA only is for employees.
Say what?
If you own your own business, you don't answer to OSHA. Only if you have employees.
If you had employees though, we do. Could you get OSHA involved? I mean, I don't know. We're just trying to help.
You can always find out. You never know till you ask.
No.
All questions are good questions.
No, it is a really good question. So OSHA is there to protect employees of the workers. So the only problem is if you have employees that work out of your house in a home-built business, you might actually be opening yourself up to more liabilities than what you would really want to open, because it's there to protect the employees, not the owners of the business. It's there for occupational. So it only protects the employees. So it's making sure that your employees have a safe work environment. They don't care about the owners of the company. Now, I can say a lot about this because I've been a self-employed employee myself. I owned a rental business, joint venture with my parents for 15 years. Since we owned and operated, we didn't have to follow the guidelines of OSHA. But the second we hired employees, it's different. And I also work for my full-time job is I work for a large electrical contractor in the state, and we're constantly hammered with MSHA and OSHA regulations down our throats all the time, what's acceptable and what's not. But both MSHA and OSHA are there for the employees. They don't care about the employers. They don't care about your business. It's just employees. But it's still worth asking. You just never know. I don't want you to ask the question. They're like, oh wait, you own a business that possibly has an underground mine in it, and your employees could die.
The more people you can make turn their heads this way, look. Hey.
Well, I know, but I know OSHA's fines can get pretty damn steep pretty quick.
Okay, is there any other questions we got?
I already know because off of discussions, but isn't it true that FEMA has gone after property owners after this disaster has been declared? They were approved, and then they years later went after those people for recoupment because they were now suddenly unqualified.
Yep, and looks like John's walking up here. He wants that question, but yes. That's the short answer. Here's the long answer.
Yeah, I don't have it with me, but that's
posted it in the group chat. It's 44 CFR 206.75. And that says that if anybody intentionally causes an act or by omission causes an act for which federal funds are spent, then the federal government has a right to pursue those funds in federal court. So if they did expend funds out here, of course, then there's nothing that prevents the United States of America from saying, you know what, Meade County, you built a subdivision on top of mine spoils and mines and sewage lagoons, so we're gonna sue you now in federal court.
Right. Did you hear about that when it came to like Hurricane Katrina? Because that is an actual.
I heard about that, yeah, with the levees, because there was a lawsuit over whether the levees were high enough in Katrina, and they got sued. And I don't remember if FEMA recovered monies from the engineers at the levees, but Patrick had looked up a great case where they had sued years later to recover a bunch of money from people who got FEMA, because FEMA prevents duplication of benefits. However, a lot of people don't know this unless you read the Stafford Act.
Right.
But the Stafford Act allows the President of the United States to waive that duplication of benefits remedy. So if the President feels like it's in the interest of justice, he can say, you get FEMA money and you get whatever other monies you recover too. So it's not just the duplication of benefits prevention, it's also Stafford Act, which says the President can waive it. So that's what I know about that. I think people are starting to wind it up. Should we wind it up?
So, John, one thing, because I read a lot of things about the FEMA and the Katrina too. And a lot of the cases I read was FEMA came back on the people that had collected insurance money and then got FEMA, where insurance was the primary, and then what insurance didn't cover, then FEMA was supposed to. So there was a lot of double dipping. In our case, insurance ain't gonna help us at all.
No.
Because I'm pretty sure everybody's insurance company said bye-bye.
Yeah, and we've got to write a letter to everybody's insurance company next week, because just to cover our basis, most of those insurance companies require that you notice them of an injury, and then the only actual thing that FEMA requires people that are victims of a major disaster or an emergency is to submit a claim to insurance. That's all that's required. Yep.
Is that going to cause an issue with the ridiculous amount of hail that we've gotten?
No, because I think that, you know, your insurance is going to be so much more structural than what's on the outside as far as roofs and siding goes. Yeah. But, so I'll close it up if that's okay. We just wanted to make sure that we thank you all for your trust. It's been a long road here just to get to the beginning of the road, but we are at the beginning of the road now, and so we are more than happy to have people come in, work, help, do your case, know what's going on with your case. We couldn't be happier with the trust that you've given us. We will never stop. We will never quit. We will never give up. We will see this to the end. And like I said in the beginning, I want you to be proud of me when this is over with. I don't want you to be beat up and take $2, and then I take 30% of your $2, and you never want to talk about this again. That's not what I want. I want you to be proud of me. I want you to be proud of yourselves, that you stood up and you fought and you didn't get tired and you get emotional with it, because like Dave was telling before, you know, there's all of these cases like this, there are two trials. There's a trial of public opinion, and then there's the trial in the courtroom. 98% chance this will never make it to trial number 2, but it's making it to trial number 1 right now. And I just, you know, all of the pressure that we've gone through in the past month, you know, we've wanted to quit, we wanted to go home. We've always thought, and it's been in our minds, that, you know, how much more worse is it to be the people who live out here. That's kept us going. And even me, with 10 years of experience, even I have had to take steps back and, again, divorce yourself of that emotion, because it'll drain you, it'll make you want to quit, it'll make you make bad decisions. And so just keep that faith. You've already won. It's a question of when. Journey of justice has begun. We will be there for you. We will never leave. We will do what we need to do to make this happen. Thank you.
So I'm not really a big promoter of anything, but I think a lot of people need to really realize that these guys took on probably more than they ever bargained for. There's a good chance that they're probably not going to be able to take any clients on for the next 2 years. So we pretty much own them. But everybody else, everybody's got to prepare themselves, because this is going to get down and dirty. It is. You're going to, you know, we've already seen it on some of the comments. We're going to get called a lot of really bad things, squatters. I've seen that multiple times. Batcat, he doesn't know the difference between gypsum mines and gold mines, but whatever. But yeah, we're gonna get drugged through the mud. So if you don't want to be drugged through the mud, keep your name out of the headlines. If you don't mind it, you know, I'm personally there. I got big shoulders. I've been carrying a lot for a lot of years. So you know, they're just like every one of us. I'm sure we all have our weak moments, but I said I was here to fight for everybody, not just the people that lost their house or have a giant hole. I'm here for everybody. I'm going to keep fighting for everybody, because we all have an equal cause here. We might all not be homeless now, but we all might be homeless in a year from now. So it's a group effort. We need to stay together, especially with the other things. It doesn't matter who's going with what lawyer. We're still a community, and it's together. We still have to stick together. So realistically, you know, we shouldn't be fighting over whose lawyer is better or whatever. We need to band together, because as a community, we're a lot stronger. And just let your own lawyers do their thing, because that's the only place that's going to get us anywhere. So.
Yep, and you know, thank you, John. Thank you, John, and thank you all other people named John. There's many of you. It seems like the most common name of the 80s. Most people here are born in the 80s, seems like. But, you know, just in quick closing, you know, we also are tired of all the lawyer battling, bigotry, threats of disciplinary complaints here, there, this person promising a $10,000 survey that is nowhere even realistic, because we've already done more than that in this year, all the misleading, the manipulation. We're tired of it. We're done with it. What we are looking at here is seeing this as what it is, which is a political motivation, or a political movement, not motivation. And we are in it for you guys. That's what this is. We've completely transformed. We've canceled all the normal rules. We are here to fight for you. And with that remark, I want to go ahead and close. I want to thank Jerry, Tailgate Productions. He's been here holding the camera and doing all of our stuff here for us, you know, with the microphones and everything. You might recognize him from his karaoke shows, Shep and Deb's. In fact, he's actually bringing back karaoke post-corona, mid-corona, whatever you think it is. Saturday night, Tria, at 9 o'clock. Is that right, Jerry?
Yep.
Yep, 9 o'clock at Tria Saloon. That's right across from, across and kind of down from Western Dakota Tech. Stop in. Great experience. Great guy. Can't think of a better karaoke host. And we couldn't be happier to be here. And couldn't be happier to have a better community. Any more questions? We'll be here as long as we need to. Kind of talk to us individually. I'll stand here all night if I need to. So, thank you.
All right, and there you have it, the briefing from Fitzgerald Law. I'm Jeremiah Hale with Hale Media. It's been Tailgate Productions. Be safe, be good, have a good night.